Ever since printing off this big batch of DungeonBlocks terrain tiles, I have fallen in love with this system. A great battle map can make a TTRPG or wargame combat way more engaging and memorable. From pieces of scattered terrain to a TV map, or on the higher end, something like these 3D printed dungeon blocks add so much to the table. So, as soon as I saw DungeonBlocks' newest release, the Creepy Swamps, I knew I had to print a few off. While I do dream of one day having shelf after shelf of these tiles printed and ready to go, for now I'm a little bit limited on space. So today, I reckon that we'll print off one of these small preset layouts showcased on the campaign. Now, this video is not sponsored, I just truly love this system. No annoying clips or tedious to install magnets make this system hassle-free to assemble, deconstruct, and more importantly, change blocks on the fly. And something that I will always vouch for on this channel. All of these files are designed to print completely support-free on FDM printers. If you do like the look of this system, I'm hoping to get this video out while there's still a couple days left in their launch campaign for the Creepy Swamps release. So be sure to check out their launch campaign over on my mini factory, where you can pick up this set of files at the cheapest it will ever be. Today I'll be printing these blocks on the Elegoo Neptune 4 Pro, equipped with a 0.4mm nozzle and running Elegoo standard PLA. And normally for this printer I slice my files in Elegoo Slicer, but instead today I'm going to try and convert my settings over to Orca Slicer. More on that shortly. For preparation, I always scale my DungeonBlocks down to 91%, as I personally prefer using that scale for D&D base sizes, while still maintaining the functionality of the various walled blocks in these sets. In terms of layer heights for these prints, this is where things get interesting. For the bigger prints, i.e. the trees, the unseen base of the blocks is printed at 0.22mm layer heights, but for the actual visible parts of the tile, and for the trees themselves, I used a height range modifier to make these print ever so slightly more detailed at 0.2mm layer heights. For all of the smaller, more intricately sculpted blocks, I kept their unseen bases at 0.22, but further decreased their layer heights down to 0.12 on their visible areas, to try and get a good amount of detail captured in those prints. I'm still exploring getting the best quality I can out of this printer, but I've always somewhat struggled with top layer quality on this printer. This is something I was able to mostly combat in Elegoo Slicer in my previous projects, by lowering down the top surface print speed. But even after matching those settings in Orca Slicer, these still came out a little bit streaky. So I guess there'll be no dry brushing on these water tiles. Oh, and that happened too. But even with a few printer flaws, after a couple of reprints for the failed parts, I think that our Creepy Swamps are ready for some more fitting colours. Using some thick double-sided foam tape, the same as I use to attach minis to paint handles, I'm going to attach all of our blocks to some strips of cardboard, to be able to more easily move around these tiles with an airbrush, which is how we're going to be laying the groundwork for our paint job today. After making sure to mask up and get some ventilation going, I fire up the airbrush with some Army Painter Matte Black Air Primer. With big blocks like this that have all sorts of details and angles to them, you really need to make sure you're looking at the models from every possible angle. Otherwise you can and will miss spots with the primer. And usually I wouldn't be too worried about this, but this black primer is also going to be our undercoat to work up from, so I want to make sure that there is no yellow plastic left visible. And it is okay to go pretty thick on the primer here. These are FDM prints after all, and a thicker layer of primer will help to fill in any last layer lines. If I was planning on painting these tiles mostly by brush, I probably would have added a little bit of varnish to our primer mix, just to get a slightly more satin finish. But given that I plan to base coat most of these using the airbrush and just come in and add some detail using dry brushing later, a straight black primer should be fine for this project. If you want to see my recommendations for priming FDM minis, or really any FDM model that you plan to paint with a brush, you can check out this video up in the card and down in the description below. With our primer all set up, it's time to come in with some colour, and today I'm going to be trying to get pretty close to the concept renders for these blocks, using a range of greens and browns for the undercoats. Before we continue, if you are enjoying this video so far, be sure to subscribe down below and drop a like on the video. It goes a long way in making sure that my videos will keep popping up on your YouTube homepage. And if you want to further support what I do, consider jumping over to the Patreon, where for just a couple of bucks you can get access to the Painted for Combat community Discord, and all of my printer profile downloads. Or, at the higher STL tiers, get access to an awesome STL welcome bundle, which includes the painting handles that I use in almost every miniatures video, as well as monthly FDM-friendly bases, like our May release, the Industrial Hive. Awesome grimdark bases, perfect for industrial factories, metal worlds, or any mechanically inclined factions. All designed to print with no supports on FDM machines, and created in a way to minimize visible layer lines by maintaining flat top surfaces. So, no ugly overhangs or visible layer line stepping. So be sure to jump on over to the Patreon if you're interested in joining the community Discord, or if you want to pick up those bases and get to printing. Our colours start with a base coat of Army Painter Angel Green, generously applied over most of the terrain, hitting pretty much everything that won't be brown. All of the various green tones across these models will be working up from the same Angel Green, rather than having a bunch of different green base colours. And speaking of browns, that will be our next step, giving a generous coat of oak brown over all of the wooden details, the trees, the sticks, and the torches. I'm being careful not to overspray onto any of our green areas, but it is okay to have some of that green creeping up the tree roots or the base of the torches. This will just look like swampy moss or water residue that has made its way up these objects sticking out of the murky water. That same brown is applied to the pathways, albeit a little more sparingly, not worried about hitting every angle. I'm making sure to leave some of that dark green in the recesses of the path, to help it feel more like a moss-covered mycelial dirt. Now it's time to make the water pop, with a coat of rainforest green over all of the watery areas. Spraying this on full coverage for all of the pure water tiles, but wherever the water meets an object, I taper out to leave that darker green at the connection, to make it look like the tree roots, torches, or other objects are a bit more integrated with the water. With that said, I do make sure to get some of this brighter green to overspray onto the roots and torches, as we mentioned earlier, to continue to sell the look of this murky swamp water being absorbed into the wood over time. And, after a couple of coats of bright green, our water is looking plenty swampy, and ready for some details. Now, usually this is the part of the project where I make my way over to the hobby table and show you all of the steps I took to take these tiles from base coat to final paint job. However, the memory card that had all of that footage on it seems to have disappeared off of the face of the earth, so instead let's just do a little bit of a breakdown of the steps I took. For the lily pads on these blocks, I went for a base coat of greenskin, followed by a highlight of autumn sage, and then a wash of the same greenskin to tone the highlights down and add a simple recess shade. All the wooden elements got a simple dry brush of fur brown, and on the tree roots I made sure to extend this down the length of the roots until it was almost touching the water, to help better blend that green to brown gradient at the base of the roots. The grasses got a simple yellow ochre wash, followed by a heavy overbrush of army green. All of the dirt paths got a few different layers of dry brushing. Firstly, with Angel Green at about 50% coverage, to give a nice mottled look between the brown and greens. And then 2 more dry brushes, sparingly applying both some greenskin and army green to further add interest to the colour. For the other details, simple layering on the lotus and most of the mushrooms, though some of the mushrooms got a base coat and a wash to help vary the colour, and the torch got a dry brush of orange on the wooden pole, and some black dry brushed over the yellow and orange flame. And, all up, after 18 hours of printing, and roughly 3.5 hours of painting, these dungeon blocks are absolutely ready for an awesome game night showdown. I'm super happy with how these tiles came out. They match pretty closely to the original renders, but deviate just enough where I thought it was necessary. It's always nice to find that balance between great looking terrain and how long it took to paint it, meaning that when I eventually have the space to expand this collection, it will be easy and quick to paint up a bunch more of these dungeon blocks. Again, if you want to pick up the Creepy Swamps Dungeon Block set, or any of their previous releases at their lower campaign-only prices, head on over to their My Mini Factory page, which I'll leave a link to down below. I really do love this system, and I'm sure that you will too. Consider liking the video if you did enjoy it, subscribe to stay up to date with future projects here on the Painted for Combat channel, but most importantly, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.